We haven't talked business insurance here in quite a while since this whole COVID thing has come around. Now, you guys can provide all kinds of business insurance to our listeners out there, right?
That's correct. Yeah. We are. People don't always know all the different options that we have available, but we, of course, as we talk about often, we offer home, auto, recreational vehicle, personal insurance, flood insurance for both home and for business. We also offer many commercial offerings with workers' compensation, business owners' policies, something that we call a commercial package policy, and beyond. We also offer life and disability. We have we're full-rounded here. And one thing that we don't often talk about is businesses. And I think you brought up a great starting point. With COVID-19, a lot of businesses were grossly impacted. The sales have dipped, the payroll numbers have gone down, the employees have somewhat trickled down, and hopefully they can come back. But how has this impacted businesses, and how have businesses been able to kind of hold the line? Well, many companies have really stepped up and changed policies in a way with crediting that have allowed businesses to pay less for their commercial insurance over this period of time of closure for many people, and then slowly dial it back in, kind of like the spigot we keep hearing about, where they're able to crank it back up a little bit. And that's very company specific, but a very nice way to do it. Because one thing that we have talked about for sure is that a common exclusion that's on business policies and pretty much every policy is virus. So there's no specific trigger of coverage for COVID-19 on a commercial policy. And that's something that we'll be hearing a lot more about, especially in the courts and legislative activity in the coming years as they start to turn their focus to it after this hopefully goes away. But let's talk about businesses in general. When you have a commercial policy, there's really two types of policies that are available. There's an auditable policy and a non-auditable policy. What's that all about? Well, if you're a simple office exposure like myself, my business owner's policy here at our office, we don't see a lot of sway one way or the other. We're a non-auditable policy for our business owner's policy, which is what covers us for liability, which is what covers our business personal property from within, which is what covers me when I'm on the road in my vehicle in the course of business. Something like a restaurant, that's going to be quite a different story, or somebody who has alcohol or liquor sales, also going to be a different story. Those are completely auditable accounts. Well, what do they have to do? Well, annually, in fact, to start the policy, we need to be rating it based upon what their gross receipts are, and that's really going to be a big factor in terms of their cost. Some companies rate restaurants in particular on gross, on square footage or on the number of seating available, but still very much an auditable policy because most restaurants do sell liquor. So depending on your information that you provide up front for the initial policy, that will dictate very much how things are going to be playing out in terms of the cost of your insurance. And then on an annual basis, you're going to see an annual audit, especially if you sell liquor, a liquor audit, where they're going to say how much gross receipts, what were your gross receipts the course of the year, because we need to know if we charged you appropriately or not. And there's two outcomes that will come from the result of that audit, Jeff. Either A, you could see a little bit of a refund, or B, you could be paying more in. Because, again, it's based solely on those gross receipts that dictates quite strongly the cost of that insurance policy.
Well, Mike, if I could here, I'm pretty sure out there that there's a lot of folks now have their own business, like maybe selling crafts, or we've talked in the past about, farm to family providers out there.
Sure.
These are the kind of things that would impact a small home business too, right? Not just the mom and pop store up and down Main Street, USA.
Right, and really it's specific to the type of business that you operate, so it may not impact so greatly the small mom and pops, but still could. You're absolutely correct in that regard. But as you start looking at the different other offerings of policies that are out there that you may or may not need, let's talk about workers' compensation as an example. The second, and I'm not kidding, the second you start compensating somebody for duties for your business, you have an employee. And the second you have an employee, with very few exceptions, you have to have workers' compensation insurance. And workers' compensation insurance is very much a state mandate, and you just have to have it, and it's based solely on payroll. So how much are you paying these individuals to do the work they're doing? What kind of work are they doing? As you might expect, somebody who's working in office is going to be a very inexpensive policy versus somebody who's out in the woods cutting down trees and logging, or somebody who's in an auto shop turning wrenches and working on vehicles, or even somebody who's behind the bar serving alcohol. These are all different exposures, and every single workers' compensation policy is an auditable policy. So that's key to remember. So when you start getting around renewal time some questionnaires from that company that you have your workers' compensation with, open them and respond to them, because what we've seen, especially recently, is companies have introduced what they call a non-compliance charge. So if you don't respond to the audit and give them the information needed to appropriately control the cost and rate the policy, you could see a very hefty one-time payment of being a non-compliant policy. I mean, we're talking, in some cases, I've seen up to $6,000 for being a non-compliant policy. So, boy, does that make you want to hurry up and get that audit submitted and completed. And much like I mentioned before, when you do the audit, your answers and what the information provided is going to very much dictate the cost. So either A, you paid too much, or B, you paid too little. So you could either see a refund or see an invoice with some additional premium, which is hard. That's a hard situation. Here you are, you've had a policy, let's make it easy, from January 1, 2020 to January 1, 2021. You complete the audit, and all of a sudden in March of 2021, the company's telling you owe them $2,000 for last year's policy. Boy, that can be a hard burden to bear. But again, the rate is based solely upon your exposure for the course of that policy year.
Well, Mike, we do have to wrap things up here, but I think the important thing that you touched on, you've showed that there are so many variables that the key thing for business owners to take away from this is the importance of the conversation and staying abreast on the changes, correct?
Absolutely. And a good accountant doesn't hurt either.
And they won't let you write that $2,000 or $6,000 check. Folks, Mike's going to give you the information if you'd like to contact him.
Yes, absolutely. You can give us a call, 748-5224. You can find us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. You can also find us online, where you can get a free home or auto quote at thebarrettagency.com. And along the lines of Google, Facebook, and YouTube, just look for Barrett Insurance Agency, and we'll be there somewhere.
And we'll be here another Tuesday morning with good policies. Mike, stay safe. Hope the family is as well. We'll see you next week for another edition, okay?
Sounds good, Jeff. Have a great day.
You too. If you missed the telephone number for Barrett Insurance, 802-748-5224. Music from Meghan Trainor now on our play.